Okay, so hello and welcome back to another video. This one is very interesting and I didn't expect to be making this until only 2 days ago when I found out that Ludum Dare 41 was on this weekend, and I'd seen in the past about Ludum Dare but I'd never thought about taking part, and it just popped up and I knew I definitely wanted to do it. So I'm going to just be doing a voiceover of day 1 because so far only day 1 has been. I'm gonna do this voiceover, then go to sleep, and then do the second day. So in the video, you can see the progress I've made time-lapsed by like 15 times speed or something, so I can fit this into, well, a whole day's work into a short video. So anyway, Ludum Dare, if you don't know what it is a game-making competition, kind of fun event thing, depends what you want to call it, where basically there are a list of themes and people vote for them for across 3 days or something like that, and then on the final day, or the final voting period, whichever one of those wins the voting things is the topic or theme of the games people have to make for the competition. And there were some really interesting ones, like a light in the dark, or like it spreads, or some other interesting titles. But to my surprise, well, it wasn't really. I had a feeling this would happen because it was interesting but annoying. Is that the topic that got chosen was two incompatible genres, which isn't really a title or theme, I guess. It's pretty free to interpret how you like, and I guess there's no limit on how incompatible you can go. Well, I see some people making games which seem pretty normal. I spent a long time deciding what I wanted to do for this because I couldn't think of any good ideas, but in the end I decided to make a bullet hell card game, kind of. Two systems that just don't go, because the whole point of card games is taking turns and strategically thinking, whereas bullet hell is all about thinking on the spot and making quick decisions. So I thought it'd be very interesting, even if it isn't a good game necessarily, to make a bullet hell card game where the cards you play are the movement for the bullet hell, the movement controls. And behind me right now, what am I doing? I am currently designing the floor for the thing. I went into Blender and split it up into like a kind of grid thing to easily be able to see each space that the character's on, because when you play a card, so I'm going to add more cards. You'll see at the end of this video with the final thing for day 1, and there's still quite a bit more I want to do. Not too much, there's definitely enough time. I want it to make it so that the player could easily move around left, right, forwards, backwards, simply. So when I get to the part where I make cards, the first 4 cards are just left, right, up and down, and you can use them no cooldown. You just drag off the bottom bar like you would in Hearthstone, I guess, and then when you let go it does that movement, and it's all about really fast. It's impractical, but it's about, the skill cap is how fast can you drag the right ones, and like coordination, and it's actually a pretty skillful game, and I think I've kept it simple enough to not look bad, really. Anyway, I'm gonna move the conversation onto what's happening and you'll see how it goes. So right now I am currently setting up the projectiles. So I wanted it so that projectiles could spawn from the left, the right, or from the bottom. I tried spawning from the top, but they had so much time to appear that there was no point. So I decided just to keep the 3. So I made it so that if they spawn on the left, they can spawn on any of the grid spaces on the left, and then add a force to the right, and then if they spawn on the right, it's the same but add a force to the left, and so on. So then there are bullets, or whatever you want to call them. At the moment they're just black spheres coming from the 3 directions across the thing. And what am I doing right now? I'm going onto the Ludum Dare website just to have a quick check. I do like going back onto that to see what other people are making, just out of curiosity. Also, this video is uncut. I mean, it's mainly just it's completely sped up, so if there's any still points like this, it won't be for long. So if you look right now, I've got the red thing in the middle, which is the player, and the bottom floor with the kind of grid spaces marked out, so you can easily see, well, each of the grid spaces, so that you know which one you're on, and if there's an enemy or, well, one of the projectiles, you can dodge it. So the day before Ludum Dare, you technically are allowed to start so long as you're only doing things that would save time, such as the menu. So I just made like the start game options because that's just waste of time in the actual thing. You can't really start making the game anyway because you don't know what you're going to be making unless you somehow guessed or made mock-ups of loads of different topics. But for this, I just decided, let's make a menu, go to sleep, and then I woke up and saw the topic, and I spent ages thinking about what to make. But I feel like this has potential, and when I get further through this video, oh, here we go, I'm back doing stuff. So I open Blender, and I appear to be making, yeah, the coins for the players. I just simply made a cylinder, like a low poly cylinder, just flattened it, made it look a bit indented, you know. And then I also tweaked with some of the visual settings. Now, usually when you're making a thing in rush time or in general, just making games in general, you want to get the core mechanics working before you do the visuals. And to be honest, I already had the core mechanic working, which was the player moving around on grid spaces. It was just a case of the more I add after this is more functionality and more gameplay. So once I added the player moving, well, what's your incentive to play? The incentive to play is to get points and get a high score and beat other people's high scores. And the only way you can get points is by, you know, picking stuff up in this case, or maybe surviving, but I decided to make it picking up. So that forces you to move around, because you could be lucky and stay in the middle spot and nothing could hit you if you are really lucky. But in this scenario, you have to go and get coins. I also added other stuff later, so I added like gems, which are rarer, like they spawn less often, but they give you more points, you know, just add some variety. So here I've just imported the coin, and I must be messing around with something else right now, but I work on making it so that when the player collides with the coin, it adds some money or score. I also make it so that the coin disappears, make it so that the coin is flipped correctly, so it's on its side when it's in the spot. I have to shrink the coin so it fits in correctly from the Blender model down to this, and so I don't one problem I've had quite a bit in this is things colliding in different spaces because their colliders go slightly out of their grid space zone. So I had to shrink some colliders, but I mean it literally makes no difference because you have to follow a grid anyway. I'm not sure what I'm doing right now at this point. Maybe I've just gone to have a break or something, because doing this for, I think I had like 6 hours worth of recording on this, and I was working on it for more than 6 hours. I just recorded most of it, but not all of it. Anyway, so more about the game. What I plan on doing is making more cards. So I have the 4 directional movement, which you have to use all the time, because I tried with making it so that you draw cards for movement like that, but it was just too slow paced and hard now, because you might just get 4 forwards and then you can't actually go anywhere, and it is very problematic. So I decided to keep the 4 basic movements as just cards you drag on, and then with the other ones I'm going to add, they will be like randomly appearing, or you pick up things to draw the card, kind of. So I'm going to add jump. Oh no, I have added jump actually. Obviously jump, well, your character goes up and over stuff, so it's kind of like being invulnerable for a short amount of time, I guess. Then I'm going to add one where you use it and it destroys the projectiles in a radius around you, so maybe like 3x3 around you, so that if loads of them are getting close to you and you don't think you're going to be able to dodge them all, you can use that if you've got it. I'm also going to add a wall where it places a like wall in front of you, which stops you from moving into it, but it also means that it blocks the projectile, so it kind of cuts off a row or column, which is good for defense, and I'll get into that tomorrow when I've done it. So what am I going to do now? I'm setting up the spawn coin. Now, yeah, this was more complicated than I originally expected, because spawning a coin is easy enough in anywhere, but first of all I have to limit it to the grid spaces, and I also have to limit it to the grid spaces and make sure that I don't spawn 2 coins in the same location, because if you use random locations, that can happen. They will overlap eventually. So how I solved this was I made an array of vector threes, which are, you know, positions in the world, and every time I added a new coin or spawned it, it would add that vector 3 into the list. And then every time you spawn a new coin, it checks the list, and if the new spawn location is in that list, it then picks a new one, because if it's already in the list, it means a coin is already in that vector 3 position, so you can't put another coin there. And then the only other thing you have to do after that is make it so that when the coin disappears or gets picked up or whatever, that grid space is freed up, and I simply just use the list name .remove and then the vector 3, so then it's freed up, and it worked pretty well. I've never had coins overlapping, and I don't think I've had any other problems with it. One problem I had was if all the grid spaces were filled up, which is technically possible because the player could be in the center one and all the others could be full, and then the problem with that is the coins would just infinitely spawn on the player, and the player would just get infinite money, and it was basically an exploit. So I made it so that it can't spawn on the center. But the problem with that is it gets stuck in an infinite loop of trying to find new spaces when there are no new spaces left, which is annoying. So to fix that, I just made it so that the coins have a duration, so that like it's impossible for the whole grid to fill up, because the coins that have been there earlier die out. They last for about 10-15 seconds. I think I made it 15 seconds, maybe 20. I can't remember. I can tweak numbers like that pretty easily. So in this code here, what have I got? I've got the time and the list, and also obviously the coin itself. And as soon as it starts a coroutine. Now I love doing coroutines with waiting, because you can do minus time.delta time with a float, but the wait for seconds in a coroutine is so much more useful, and calling a coroutine from a coroutine if you want it to keep looping. So obviously I want to keep spawning coins for the whole duration. So what I do is I spawn a coin, add it to list, blah blah blah, wait however many seconds, then do it again, and rinse and repeat, and it keeps working. Now the code you see here, I switched around a bit later because I had problems with the checking and waiting thing. I think at this point I was probably just thinking or writing down to myself like how I was going to do this, because it was quite problematic. There might have been a better way of doing it. And also keep in mind, like, this is my first game jam anyway, so I've not actually experienced doing this before in such a pressured amount of time. Like, I've made some quick little games before, and then after making those quick games, I then started making my big project, which I'm still working on. I haven't worked on it for the last 2 days because I have been tired, and also working on this for the last day. I'll be sure to get back to it after Monday when this is all over. So what am I doing right now? I am trying to get the cards to work, it seems, because I have used this system before, but it had been quite a while. So the iDrop and iDrag handler, those are used for, well, dragging UI elements around, so dragging the cards off the bottom bar into the game to use them. So I did have to quickly check up on a tutorial in the Unity docs just to remember how it all works, because it was quite confusing. Like, it's different to most of the other coding stuff. Let's see. So basically here, how it works is when you want to use these drag and drop things, you have to add to the what's it called? In the code at the top, you have to add more things, not on using. Oh no, you do have to add using, and then you have to add something else as well. After the mono behavior, you have to add the things. So if you want to use begin drag, end drag, drop, there's all the different ones. So like when I begin dragging a card, it then sets its position to my cursor, so I can move the card around. When I let go of the card, it snaps back, and well, it does its effect. It checks which card it's dragging, and then if it's the up card, it'll move the player up and left and so on. And that's really easy to add new cards, because I can just add one more bit to the if statement for if the card is equal to I don't know, explosion, and it does the explosion around the player, whatever I'm going to call stuff. Tomorrow is just going to be adding functionality to the game, because at the moment you can play it and have a score and all the menus work. Now, technically, I need to make it so you can access the settings menu during gameplay. Like the moment you can only change volume before you play. Obviously, I want to add that whilst you're playing, but that'll be simple enough to do. I just copy and paste the. Actually, no, I already have the settings menu in it anyway, but I just make it appear there. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just thinking to myself about how I'm gonna do this tomorrow. Anyway, so I've got back to working. It seems working on making the end game screen. Now I think I started making this and then realized I wasn't recording, so I started making it. Started recording again. In my other game at the moment, there aren't really any animations in the UI. In this, I thought it would be very nice to add animation to the UI. So when you lose, it fades to the white screen, and then the text pops in and slides in. And I messed around a little bit until I got it looking nice, and I actually really like how it looks now, where the game over appears, then the score, then the high score, and then the buttons appear from the bottom, like they slide up instead of popping in. Because if everything pops in, it doesn't have enough variety. It doesn't look good. So here at this point, I've already got pretty much most of the game working to a good point, to a good standard. And I thought, well, you can keep playing and get points, but when you lose, nothing happens. So I obviously need to make the end game screen where it displays the score, obviously, of the attempts that you just had, the play, whatever you want to call it. And then it also displays the high score, which is saved in play of prefabs, where it can reload that when you open the game again, so your high score doesn't just reset when you start again. I had quite a few, well, not problems, but it took me a while with the animator and all this like UI arrangement and keyframing. It didn't take too long, but at least I'd have to do it tomorrow, and I've already got most of the game working. I think the time management has been really good, considering most people I see online for the Ludum Dare always complain about, well, not complain, but say their biggest weakness is time management and also scope. But I feel like I've kept the game simple enough so that I don't have to. I considered, like, what would it be like if you were making an RPG or a story game? You would have to end the story, but you only have 2 days to make the whole thing. So yeah, it's good to have like one of these endless games. I think they're the best kind of games for this, the endless ones, where the game sort of builds itself, like not procedurally, but you don't have to preempt the player going so far. All I do is make it more difficult with like scaling the longer they survive, and that's the game. So obviously I get it to display score and high score, and the cards are at the bottom now, so you can drag them up into the, as long as you drag them past that panel at the bottom, then they get used. So here I am making it so that when I use the card, it goes the right direction. Any playtesting I do here might be real, because it's sped up, it might be really, it'll be too quick for you to really see what's going on. So when I get to the end of this video, I have a non-time-lapsed gameplay where I'd show off the end of day one product, I guess. So yeah, here I'm making it so that when I open the game, it also has a nice animation rather than just like popping in. So I made it so the buttons come in and the title like does a little like, you know, increase in size and then shrink and then increase again. I don't know. Usually I'm not very good at the visual side of things, so I feel like keeping this minimalistic but also clean, like it is so nice. Usually I criticize my UI a lot and say how bad it looks. That's why I get my friends to help in the other thing, but I've kept this everything I've done in this has been me, and yeah, I just kept it with like a nice simple white background. Like maybe I made it a tiny bit grayish because pure white didn't look very good for the background. And then I've got the text. The font type I used is Plumpful, which is a font I used to use in my old YouTube thumbnails on my other channel because I just really like how it looks, and it suits this pretty well. I use it on the cards as well, but when I start working on finalizing visuals and stuff tomorrow, I'm gonna remake the cards, have actual like arrows on, or look better than just white squares. So yeah, it seems that at this point I've got keyframing set up for most of the UI. So I can go from the home page, the settings, and slide back, and then I can go into the game, and then I can die and then press play again. I've not really come across many bugs apart from the coin spawning. I don't think I've had any UI bugs or, well, gameplay bugs. Any little ones that I've had to fix, and they've not really been bugs. I have exported the game a few times, which is another thing people say is a great error people make, is they keep testing their game in the play mode, and then when they export it, something goes wrong, and then they don't have time to fix it, and it all goes wrong. But luckily, well, not luckily, but I've been able to test my game pretty simply. And yeah, here we go, I'm making the transitioning. Obviously it's all sped up to a point where you can't exactly see what it looks like, but again, I'll show you at the end of this what it's like. So yeah, at this point I'm trying to position all the buttons like sliding in correctly, because if I'm gonna have them slide in, and then when you press start game they slide out, and I want them to do the kind of exact same animation but reversed or mirrored or whatever. So it's just a case of copying and pasting values around so that they're the exact same. Okay, what am I doing now? It appears that I'm not doing anything. There we go. So I also spent a while messing around with like skyboxes and some lighting stuff, just to see what I can make it look like without putting too much effort in. If I have, which I'm sure I will, plenty of time tomorrow, I can make it look nicer. Can make the background look nicer than just a blue background, though I've got quite a good colour of blue for this, quite a nice colour. The grid, I've considered remaking the grid. All I have to really do is keep it the same size, but I don't know how I could better show the different grid spaces really without having lines everywhere, which would make it look bad. Oh, here we go. One of my friends suggested that, well, I knew I didn't want to just keep them black spheres, so he said, why don't we have bullets or bombs or something? And the thing with bullets is, I don't know, for this kind of game I feel like a little bomb suits it. It's like Bomberman, I guess, kinda like, or Melon Bomber, or whatever you wanna, whatever your favorite bomber thing kind of game is. I simply just made a icosphere and extruded one of the faces, and then added a little smaller bit. It was really simple modeling, but I think it does the job. Here we go. I'm testing. It seems. Oh, this is right at the end. Actually, this is the last part I've got to show. So that's going to the menu and back, start, nice smooth. Here we go, up, up, down, left, right, get the coins, the gems give you more points. By this time, I forgot to record actually, but I had made little fuses on the bombs so that they're more identifiable as bombs and they look cooler. See, there you saw me use jump. Now, I have implemented jump, as you can see, but I plan on making it a card that you pick up or get over time, maybe on a cooldown, so that you can't just spam jump, because jump's probably the strongest one since you can move over things. Now, this is just obviously the gameplay to show off what I've done in the day one, and I actually really like how it looks. I didn't expect that I could make this much progress in just one day. But anyway, here, game over, your score, blah blah blah. It slides up nice, you press play again, and you go again. The high score stays the same, the score resets. I got the gems and the coins spinning in the spots, and I just really love how it all looks. And anyway, this is right near the end of the video, so I'm gonna close out here, and if I just randomly cut off, that's because I'm at the end of the footage. But yeah, here we go. Anyway, thanks for watching day one. Hope you're back for day two. Thanks, goodbye, I need to sleep.